All right, hopefully fifth time is the charm. Hi you guys, my name is Olivia and I'm a stay-at-home mama to 3 kiddos. I homeschool my 11-year-old and my almost 7-year-old. I also have a 1-year-old in the house. So part of the course for me, technical difficulties. I've done this video so many times and I just feel really bad putting out super subpar content. And so I've been trying to record a video talking about my opinion and review of the Rod and Staff beginning arithmetic. This is the arithmetic 1. This is the math curriculum I use with my current first grader. But there's just been so many things that have happened and not great content that has come out when I filmed it before. And I am looking out with the light right now and dad is home so he can hang out with baby. So I'm gonna get into this now. I have already recorded a do a lesson with me video. I was hoping to make one big video on Rod and Staff, but after I edited the follow along, like the lesson with me with my first grader, I realized that it would have been just way too long. So the lesson and the video is about 25 minutes. It only takes about 15 minutes or so to do a lesson with this math curriculum with my 6-year-old. So when you see that it's a 25-minute long video, that is me explaining everything that we're doing as we're going through the lesson. So keep that in mind when you see that video come up. But what I am going to do for you today is I have a flip through recorded of this, and so we're going to look into the curriculum, but I wanted to chat about it a little bit first. So we did have a math journey to get to here. When my kiddo was a kindergartner, we were using the Good and the Beautiful, their new math program, and it was full of pictures, it was engaging, it was fun, and my daughter really enjoyed it, and there were no hiccups. She understood absolutely everything that was presented. There was never any sort of problem or like, hey, let's stop and review this concept. I never had plans to move forward with that. I wound up, they were having a sale and I was like, oh, okay, I'll buy and try this. And like I said, there was never any problem. So I never stopped or pivoted or did anything else. But I wasn't interested in continuing past the kindergarten level. So it had been on my radar for a while. I had seen lots of people talking about math with confidence. It had been out for a couple of years at that point when I purchased the first grade curriculum. And we were done with the kindergarten math from the Good and the Beautiful about halfway through my daughter's kindergarten year. And we moved into math with confidence. And it has amazing reviews, and there are a lot of people who really love that curriculum, and I did due diligence on it. I watched flip throughs, I watched reviews, I watched people talking about doing lessons, and I was convinced that it was going to be a really great math curriculum to move on to from our experience with kindergarten with the Good and the Beautiful. I have another video out where I talked about curriculums that did not work for us, and Math with Confidence is one of those. I will post that up here and or down below. There's a lot of conversation about that curriculum in the comments. Lots and lots of parents talking about how they absolutely love it and they still recommend it, and I think it's good to go through and look at those. But there's also parents who said that they had the same experience with it that I did, which is there's just a lot of wait time. There's a lot of wait time because there's so many moving parts, and their curriculum is made out to use their moving parts. So they're like master sheets and the different manipulatives that they recommend and they offer. And I can totally see how it works, because for this age group, you do need hands-on things and to be able to conceptualize all of the skills in lots of different ways and not necessarily just from like just sit down paperwork. That's not always going to work with kindergarten, first graders, second graders. But there was just a lot of wait time because it says it's a combination kind of spiral mastery program, but there was very little mastery in there. And when we did come up to different concepts to do, they rotate in different skills for each of the lessons. And even when I had everything for that lesson prepped right in front of me, all of the materials for this skill, all the materials for this skill, all the materials for this skill, there's still a lot of sit and wait for the kiddo to then pull the things out, move them around the way they need to be, apply the lesson, move them out of the way, bring forth the new stuff. And I just also didn't feel like there's a lot of practice when it came to learning the new skills. There was never anything that my kiddo tripped up on or had problems understanding or what have you. I never let it get to that point because the curriculum drove me nuts. Again, lots of people absolutely love that program, and I'm not saying it's a bad program. Just as there's different ways that a kiddo can be a learner, I do feel like there's different ways that individuals can excel in teaching, and I just did not thrive with that at all. If she was just loving it and rocking through it and zooming through it, not again that we had any trip ups, but it just took so long that it wasn't really fun for my kiddo to do. But if she had fallen in love with it, I probably would have stuck with it a little bit longer to kind of see, once we hit the skills that she hadn't mastered yet, and maybe pivoted then and stuck with it. But she didn't absolutely love it. So I dove in looking for different mastery programs for math. And the reason the mastery programs are so important to me is because I feel like even after never having hiccup with Good and the Beautiful and never having hiccup on her end with Math with Confidence, when we would come upon like a real life situation of, needing to use a skill for one of the things that we had learned, there was a lot of hesitation and like, oh, I don't know. And it was kind of like, I just don't feel like the spiral approach in either of those curriculums did any benefit for my kiddo and her learning style. So I dove in on some mastery programs. That's when I came upon Rod and Staff Math. And I had never seen any flip through or review videos for Rod and Staff for the younger kiddos. I had seen them for, I think it was 3rd, 4th, or 5th grade. A parent was talking about how their student was they were needing some remedial work, and they really liked this program because of how much practice there was so that they could master their skills. That's what caught my attention. I did a deep dive, and I'm really, really happy we went with this. And I think it was a great choice for us. There really is so much opportunity to practice to the point where it's exhaustive. And that's why you'll see in the lesson along with us video, there are lots of moments where I'm like, you've already mastered this. We're not even going to touch this in the lesson. And it makes the lesson even shorter because we're only paying attention on the things I think she actually needs to know. And if it's been a while since we had taught that skill or touched on that skill, then, we practice a little bit and that's fine. But the opportunity for the practice is there. The opportunity for the mastery is there. So yeah, so what this is, so Rod and Staff was created, it's a Christian Mennonite program. And the philosophy is that you start learning at 6. So yes, kindergarten starts for a lot of kiddos at age 5, some earlier, some later. Age 5 is typically kindergarten. Level 1 is the very first level for this program. And this program literally starts with, this is the number 0. And then you learn about zeros. And then you move on to the next lesson. This is number 1. This is number 2. And so when we first opened this book, she was well ahead of that. She was already doing some addition and subtraction. So we just did a few lessons at a time. And again, did not spend any time practicing that because we already knew. But this program quickly ramps up. And I also saw a lot of people online say that they just went ahead and started this in kindergarten for their kiddo, and that when it was time to move on to different curriculum, they were well ahead, which I can totally see how that happens. You go through all of your addition facts, all of your subtraction facts, you count well above, you get to counting well above 200, you touch on fractions, you touch on time, you touch on money, you touch on like volume, like pints and that sort of thing. You touch on measuring, telling temperature, skip counting by 2s, 5s, 10s, place value. You add 3 one-digit numbers together, 2 two-digit numbers together by the time you're done with this. So the way that it really ramps up and you get all of that education through a first grade level in one book is kind of crazy. But before it sounds overwhelming, I encourage you to look through the flip through, because I show all of the different components that allow for so much practice if you want it. Obviously, like I said, we skip some because my kiddo just doesn't need all of that practice. Had we started at kindergarten and not had any math instruction at all, then maybe I would use more of the practice and we would just kind of extend the lessons a little bit longer and maybe, use this, take more than just a school years to go through it. I don't know, because I never wound up doing that. But I will say, if you're discouraged from possibly using this for first grade because I explained that you start literally learning with the number 0 and then the next lesson learning number 1, you thinking it's too remedial, those first handful of lessons, they probably will be. But she has 0 issue with addition and subtraction. She's able to use the skills that she learned for 2 one-digit numbers and apply them to teens and 20s and what have you already. So this is also written out, again, their belief is that formal instruction starts at age 6. It's also written to a classroom. So when I post the lesson video, I'll show you how when I come upon that part of the lesson where it says, okay, bring this many kids in the front of class and say this, I just kind of explain what we do instead. It's really not difficult at all to manipulate this so that I'm just working with my one solo 6-year-old. Like, I don't even need any prep for it. It's just not difficult to maneuver it around the way that you need to, and doesn't really take any thought. Again, this is scripted for you. So if you don't excel at math, the script is right here in the curriculum that you will teach your kiddo with through here. So there's no, you don't need to have anything mastered on your end at that point to teach your kiddo with this. I don't have a whole lot more to say other than I'm so happy we used it. I will be pulling out our Singapore US edition grade 2 things for her this upcoming school year because I already have them and it's also a mastery program and it works so well. I have to say though, Singapore does not have as much practice time or opportunities or sheets or what have you as this program does. And that's what I really loved about this, because I wasn't sure what we were going to come up on if she was going to struggle with something, and all of the availability for me to present her with more practice opportunities was here with this one in case we needed it. So like I said, it's a mastery program. Every handful of lessons, they do rotate in something that you had learned, but they just touch on it. They don't spend the whole lesson on it because you've already mastered it. So it's just kind of like, oh, reminder. And or if they're going to build upon that skill and say, you learned how to tell time to the hour, and then you spend a handful of lessons on that and you really drill it in and master it, and then you move on to another skill. They might bring in tell time to an hour in one lesson, because then in the next lesson, you're going to be learning time again, but you're learning it to the half hour. And I've learned that they do that with the fractions too. So with fractions, you learn halves and then you really, really, really practice it. And then you move on to another skill that you're going to master, and they'll bring in the halves. And then the next lesson you'll be working on thirds. So it's just kind of a reminder of to build on the skill that way. It is old school. It is also Christian in a way that's, I would say 10% of the lessons have some sort of a verse in it, or the examples and or pictures in here are something that's Christ-based or biblically based. So if you are strictly secular, it would be really hard to avoid some of that. That being said, it's not Christian math in the sense that, 1 and 1 will always be 2, whether you're doing secular or you're doing a faith-based program. And it is really clear cut. As you'll see in the flip through, it is black and white for the kiddos. So no, you're not getting a colored workbook. For my kid, I haven't noticed anything either way. It's not like she's more engaged if I use color, or she's bored and doesn't want to engage if it's only in black and white. There just hasn't really been an issue with us either way. And the black and white works fine for us, but it isn't black and white. So I think the flip through is going to speak for itself, and you'll be able to see all of the material that it comes with. and how to utilize them together. And especially in the lesson video that I do with her, I explain a lot more that way also. So I am just gonna get into the flip through now. Okay, so here we have the main pieces of the Beginning Arithmetic 1 from Rod and Staff. You can buy this curriculum in a set, and when you buy it in a set, you get them like this. Also sold separately are a bunch of practice worksheets, and I will get to those after I go through this. So you will be getting the teacher's manual, you'll be getting 2 workbooks for the kiddo, and then this is the speed drills. So let me get to the teacher manual first. You're going to open this up, your table of contents, and then this is an overview of everything that you're going to see in here. So teacher's manual, workbooks, which is this, speed drills, and then these are the practice sheets that it mentions here. It tells you here what the symbols note. This is going to denote the lesson that it is that you are taking care of. There are flashcard templates in the very back of this book. I will get to all the templates as well. It's telling you here when in the lessons it says use the addition family fact flashcards, the after flashcards, the number pattern flashcards. It's telling you what it is that they look like when you want to find those. In the class time, it gives you here some different ways to approach teaching the lesson. I think it's worthwhile to read this. I don't think, especially if you have been homeschooling for, more than a year or so, you're probably aware that you're going to need to make the curriculum kind of work for you and your family and your guys' learning, more so than just following the strict layout of like what this suggested teaching routine is like. But I do think it's worth reading through this. In the class time it says, okay, on the flannel board do this, on your number line do that. And so I do think that it is important to mention again that the way that the lessons are laid out, it is written to classroom style learning. And if you just have a solo learner with you, you're not necessarily it's not going to be as necessary to have a large display up on the wall put together so that the whole class can see and use it all the time. If you're going to be sitting next to your learner and working one-on-one, especially if you don't have wall space. I mean, if you'd like to do these things, obviously that's wonderful to be able to put up those displays, but it's basically laying out for you how you will put together these displays. So like I said, it comes with 2 of these workbooks, and so it kind of tells you what you're going to learn what skill you're going to learn per lesson throughout those 2 notebooks. You literally start with learning the number 0 in the very first lesson, to doing 2-step computation and learning volume, adding, subtracting 3-digit numbers, adding, subtracting 3 numbers. So it goes very quickly. I did do a follow along lesson with me and my first grader for this curriculum, and I'll have that linked down below. And I go through and I show you when it says do this or use that, what we do in place of it if it's not something that we utilize, because again, I'm just teaching one single student, but this is what the layout for all of the lessons are going to look like. When you open up the teacher manual to a lesson, up here it's going to tell you what lesson you're on. These are going to be the objectives for the lesson, what it is, the skills you're going to be learning. And this is the prep. So this is something that they expect you to have ready or prepared for class time to utilize in class time. We'll have materials, and then there will also be the lists of what to put in the front on the classroom or the display, what to put up to teach what it is you're going to be teaching. And then this is class time. So this is going to be your direction and script for actually teaching the lesson. I'm going to flip to a further lesson so that you can kind of see the way that the class time is laid out in a different way. So here we are about halfway through, and you're still going to have your objective, your prep, and then materials. Chalkboard is what you're going to be doing at the front of the room. So here you're going to see class time 2, class time 3, class time 4. That has to do with the different topics and skills that you're going to be teaching in the class. So when you see class time 2, this is used for this part of the lesson. Class time 3, this will be used for this part of the lesson. This white box that you see here, this is the open spread for the child's workbook. So this is exactly what they see minus the orange. So here for lesson 106, these are the objectives for this lesson specifically. Here's your prep for class time. Here's the materials that they say you're going to be needing. And then up here is where you're going to be teaching. So class time 1 has to do here, review subtraction family 7. This is ask a child to fill in the 7 houses as you say subtraction family 7 together. This is for class time 2. This is a template in the back. I haven't even decided if I'm going to use these or not because it takes up a lot of space. But if you're teaching at the front of a classroom, it makes sense to make things big for display purposes. Class time 2 is here. It's literally the script to teach this skill. So in this lesson, you're going to be reviewing some 7 family subtraction facts, and then you're going to be learning and reviewing addition facts for 8. You're going to be doing a little bit of review for addition families 6 through 8. Like here it says, have the children stand in a circle with you. We will count around the circle by ones, 100 to 200 or 199. I would just be sitting with my single kiddo here and doing this aloud or not. I probably won't have her do this because she can easily count beyond 200 on her own, and so I just don't use that for class time, and I move on to the different things that we need to touch on. You'll be learning fourth fractions. We've already worked on halves and thirds before this. So this is the workbook, and here is the example of the workbook that your kiddo will see. So it's this exact spread here. The orange are the answers. So it wants you to trace these facts. So anywhere that the kiddo will be writing in, that's what you're going to see in orange. And you get the direction here. So whisper and trace the facts. That's not written in the workbook. This is for you to give direction to. Answer these facts. That's not written in here. That's for you to give the direction to. The workbook is not in color. It is just black and white. I know some people prefer to find the kiddo's workbook in color because they think it's engaging, and others prefer black and white because they don't want distractions. I don't have a preference. I think it's fine either way. This one happens to be in black and white, and she's never mentioned a problem or disliking it or hating it because it's boring looking or what have you. It's very straightforward though. There's no extras or frills on the page. It's just what's necessary for the lesson, and everything's printed really large, so there's no confusion. It's not just, it does look like there's a lot on the page, but it's not busy, and there's direction for each one of these components of this workbook. So then here are the speed drill answers. The speed drills come in every other lesson, starting at lesson, I think it's 28. So that would be this booklet. And I also think this is optional. This is just another resource that they use for really implementing and getting those facts to stick. So like the foundation of arithmetic, which is addition and subtraction in the beginning. And so every once in a while we'll do them. I ask her every time there's a speed drill that day. I say, okay, there's a speed drill this day. Do you want to do it? Sometimes she says yes, and sometimes she says no. The idea is you have a minute to do these facts, and so you'll turn the page and fill it out. And then if you do get any wrong, that's what these spaces here on the back of this sheet are for, is for the kiddo to then write out the facts that they struggled with the answer, just to get a little bit of practice. Here's the answers for the speed drills. We don't always do this. Sometimes we do, sometimes we don't. I don't, again, think it's necessary, but because this is a mastery program, there are so many opportunities to practice all of the skills before moving on if you think your kiddo needs it. I love the availability to have those resources instead of using up everything that a curriculum has and then having a kiddo still stuck on a skill and then needing to outsource that on your own for them to learn it. There's so much here. So much so that a lot of people will say it's so repetitious. We don't need that much practice on those skills. So I say just skip them and have shorter lessons that day. Like you will see there are 4 lines of these skills here, these facts for the kiddos to do during this lesson. And I almost always tell her, choose 2 lines and do those lines. But she doesn't really struggle with the addition and subtraction. If she did, I would have grace for having a longer lesson and doing a slower lesson and asking her to do more of the practice. And you will see in the practice sheets that are available, the optional choice to purchase those, that there is so much opportunity to pull out those practice sheets and use them. So then this is follow up. So follow up is basically going to be to like kind of reiterate something you learned either in this lesson or something you've touched on a few lessons back that wasn't brought into the lesson time for the workbook, or to touch on and get a little bit of an understanding before the next lesson where they implement a new skill. So when I say it's a mastery program, it is very much a mastery program where they're teaching you a new skill, you are practicing, and then they implement another skill and you practice, but they do kind of pull in that other one every once in a while, every few lessons. So you're always still practicing it. So there's a bit of a spiral, but it's heavy on the mastering the skill first. So then down here, it will say practice sheets. So practice sheets are going to be these. So it is this giant stack of printouts, and it is truly, I believe it's going to be more than you will ever need to make sure that facts stick. That's just, I mean, it's my opinion, but that's the way that there's just so much in here. Okay, so here where it reads practice sheets, it's going to say fact houses number 28, number trains number 4, number facts number 36, less numbers number 17. So that means, so I'm going to flip to lesson 106 in my practice sheets. So you're always going to see the lessons circled like this. Fact houses, it says number 28 because there are 28 fact housing practice sheets in here before getting to this one, just not necessarily for edition 7 and edition 8. But this one has to do directly with the lesson because in the lesson you were learning and practicing edition 8 facts and edition 7 facts. This edition for all of these other mixed facts are review. So if you need a little bit of practice, I would scan this up and give this to my kiddo. And then number trains number 4. So you'll be given more direction for the first number train you come across in the lesson, but basically it wants you to write out the numbers coming after 100, after 110, after 120. If your kiddo doesn't need practice with that, don't use up your class time to do it and skip it. We skip, I would say 95% of the practice sheets because I just don't feel like my kiddo needs the extra practice so far in many of these because there's so much repetition and mastery within the lesson itself, in my opinion, for where my kiddo is at. But for those that need extra practice, I love the availability here. Number facts, number 36. So that's going to be these. These are just a bunch of mixed number facts. So the curriculum teaches starting 0 plus 1, 1 plus 0, and then moves up for all of the different number families. And then it moves on to subtraction and does the same thing for subtraction. So at this point, there's a lot of facts that you may have learned that you may not be as brushed up on at this point in the curriculum. And so this is a mixed number fact sheet for you to have some practice if your kiddo needs it. And then less numbers, number 17. So that would be this one. It's basically being able to look at a group of numbers and recognize which one is more and which one is less. Sometimes this says more and it will have the greater number circled and it wants you to go through and circle the greater number out of each box, and this one's less. So lots of different kiddos have different points of arithmetic and the skills needed to build up your arithmetic mastery that they struggle with. And so your kiddo might not struggle with any of these, or they might just be one thing that they are just really stuck on. They also have counting the dots or connect the dots. I think that these are fun, and I'll ask her if she wants to do some of these if she's finished things up really quickly and she doesn't want to run off from the table really fast. This is a counting by twos number sheet. So the dot to dots are fun, but that is an example of some of the different options for the practice sheets. Depending on what the lesson taught, there's going to be different options in the practice sheets for that day. Like here, it's before and after, so it's being able to look at a number and then write down and recognize what number comes before and what number would come after. There's time telling worksheets, subtraction. This is also filling out a clock. This is number dictation, and the script for the dictation will always be in the teacher manual in the lesson for the follow-up. But there's just so much opportunity for extra learning and extra practice in here. And so even though we haven't needed a lot of this help for my kiddo, for this specific kiddo for this year, I am happy to have all of this resource, all of these practice sheets for resources for just in case, because I wasn't sure if there's going to be something she struggled with, and so not having to come up with that on my own has been great. Okay, so in the back of all of the lessons, so in the back here, it gives some different examples of ways to use the flashcards, and then how to dictate or help with the dictation and oral story problems. This is the practice sheet guide. So when it says Form A, Form B, Form C, Form D, etc. Here is an example where it says form. Practice sheets priority scale. The squares are going to be like a strengthener for the skill that you just learned. This is going to be a basic skill that you should probably already have mastered at that point, and then just some extra. So you'll see that it's going to be different each lesson. So here's some strengthener skills. Here's some basic skills, and here is an extra skill to practice. This is going to describe to you what it is on the practice sheets. When you see after numbers, it's going to give, or when it says this skill, this is because there's no direction on the practice sheets. This is basically the direction for the practice sheets, what it is it wants you to be able to do on each of those. All right, I'm one-handed and I got a baby in the other one, so if it's a little disconnected in my explanations, that's what's going on. So here's the contents of the practice sheets. The answers to all of those practice sheets that I showed you in that binder are going to be here. It's just like the workbook situation where this is the exact printout of what your kiddo sees in the white and black, and the orange are the answers. So all of the answers for all of the practice sheets are back here in the back of this book. All right, so in the back here, oh, is that for me? Thank you so much. All right, so here are the patterns for everything that it has you using for class time. So student's desk number. So this is like a number line here. This is a thermometer pattern. It wants you to do like the little bulb at the bottom, but basically you would just overlap the 50s and have the big thermometer. That is the display. So when it says in the lesson, pull out the thermometer, pull out the number line, it's talking about these here in the back, and it's the understanding is you've already read through and you understand that these are the patterns and this is what you should be using. All right, number line markers for skimp counting, place value chart. It wants you to have a big place value chart for ones, tens, and hundreds. I don't do this. I just write a big grid on a personal whiteboard when I'm doing one-on-one with my kiddo and we're doing place value. But I could see this being really helpful if this is something that you want to do even with a single kiddo and not necessarily a classroom of kiddos. Okay, it's wanting you to do one of those things where this is like the smaller poster and it wants you to use these grids to actually double this and put this on like a 14:8. These are when you go into talking about shapes. This is for measuring and some volume work. These are your fact trees that it wants you to reproduce and use up on your chalkboard. And then these are all of the flashcards. So I actually did use these and I scanned them on my printer on cardstock and then I laminated them and they've held up perfectly fine. And they have them through -10. All right, you guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me in this video. Hopefully, I gave you a pretty good look through what you're getting when you purchase this curriculum. If there's anything I didn't mention that you guys want me to answer or touch on more, go ahead and feel free to leave something like that down below in the comments and I will get back to you there. Or if you have any comments at all in general on the curriculum, I'd be happy to engage with you in the comments that way. If you've used Rod and Staff and you really enjoy it, if you could share that down below, that would be great. And also, if you guys did not like it and you've used it and it just did not work out with you, leave those down below in the comments also. I think being able to hear why something didn't work for someone is just as valuable as a tool as a like raving review of something also. So hopefully I hear from some of you guys, and I will see you guys in the next video.